Okay guys, last video for confidence intervals, and it should be a real fast one. Okay guys, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to be looking to choose a sample size, okay? So this time we may not know how big a sample is, but we may want to say, I want to make sure I'm in a 3% margin of error. I want to make sure I'm within a 5% margin of error. So this time you're kind of zeroing in on how big that margin of error is, but you won't be sure of how big your sample needs to be to get there, okay? So what we would have to do in order to figure out the sample size is you're basically working backwards to find your, you're working backwards for your margin of error to be able to find your sample size, okay? This is your Z critical value, okay? So I like to look at it as an inequality, but it's perfectly acceptable if you don't want to look at it as an inequality. You can totally look at it as just equals and work backwards. You would treat them the same. So let's take a look at a quick example, and then that's the end of this video. So a company has received complaints about its customer service. The managers intend to hire a consultant to carry out a survey of customers. Before contacting the consultant, the company president wants some idea for the sample size that she will be required to pay for. One critical question is the degree of satisfaction with the company's customer service measured on a 5-point scale. The president wants to estimate the proportion of customers who are satisfied, that is, who choose either somewhat satisfied or very satisfied, the two highest levels on the 5-point scale. She decides that she wants to estimate to be within 3% at a 95% confidence level. How large of a sample is needed? Okay. So what we need to do is work through backwards our margin of error formula. Okay. So my critical value for a 95% confidence interval, so you can just inverse norm 0.025, okay, or inverse norm, and you would ignore the negative, or inverse norm 0.975, okay, which would give you 1.96, a very common critical value, because 95% is probably the most common confidence interval. Okay, our proportion here was 0.5, so it was either high or very high. And it's your sample size, which is what you're looking for. Your margin of error here, you want to be 0.03 or within 3%. Okay, so now I'm just going to be doing some manipulating of an equation, basically. So I'm going to take my 1.96, I want to divide by the 0.03. I'm looking to get that n on the other side. Okay, I'm going to square over here so that I could get n without the square root. Okay, and now you're just down to straight calculations. So you will end up with 1067.11 as your sample size, okay? Of course, the 0.11 is a little problematic, so what we would want to do is round up to 1068. So we would want to say 1068 respondents in order to ensure that the margin of error is no more than 3%. And that's it with video 3. We'll discuss more in class.